Thanks, Brenda. She couldn't hear.
Call the work session order. Public comment, Brenda? You're the only one here. New business discussion, changing the clerk position to a deputy treasurer. Deputy treasurer to administrator clerk. This came up when we were doing employee evals, was that last week? 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago. And Tasia, on her way out, had some recommendations, and one of them was to change the position from the village clerk position to like a village administrator slash clerk. So it was some kind of a little bit of a hierarchy in there, so everybody had somebody to go to, and kind of the buck would stop with that person. And, you know, that person's main job is to report directly to the village board. But there's more duties, more money that we'd have to pay out, but it's more of a better point of contact for, you know, like a kind of a liaison between Bob and his job as economic development director, and he would work closely with the village administrator. Like when I do land development, so I work with, I didn't think about it until she had said it, but on smaller villages, I'm still working with a village administrator and not a village clerk. Did speak to one of the guys that I work a lot with daily. He's the village administrator for the village of Kewaskum, which is about 4,000 people. So I work with him all the time. He sent over a lot of stuff, job descriptions from the village of Kewaskum. He got me in contact with the consultant they use, and he's gonna put up a proposal or something for us if we wanted to try to get a consultant on board if we decide to go this route. At our last meeting, we kind of discussed, you know, if you look through the email and Andrew's email, the one that looks like this, I basically just went through AI and went through different job descriptions, job duties of a village.
It's a good summary. I mean, I looked at the administrators over the years. I mean, that's a general,
Yeah,
we would have to tweak to decide what authority we give or not give in
For
certain
sure.
areas, and it'd be a growing process too.
for sure. So then we kind of discussed, okay, do we try to just start out with the village clerk slash administrator, see if they can keep up with all the duties? And if not, then do we hire like a part-time clerk at a third time, or then go up to half-time or 2/3 time to help out if anything?
Like an interim clerk until we get it all figured out.
Yeah,
That was one idea I had, you know. I'm not saying this is rushed. I don't wanna say that, because this has been an idea that has been come up informally many times over the years. And I've never necessarily opposed it, and I think it's, at some point, we have to cross this bridge. Is now the time to bridge it, or, you know. And I'll go back to my previous point, it comes down to the amount of authority you put into this position. You know, is it, you know, what decision-making authority do we delegate as a board to this position? Or, you know, what authority does he or she?
yeah, you can see in the job description types things, they do the clerk responsibility, personnel management, budget, financial management, administrative management, public relations and community engagement. We don't really have a person for that right now here. If something happens in the village, unless it's with the police department, we don't really have a designated spokesperson. We're like, my buddy Adam Gitter, he's the guy going out there doing the video, talking to the businesses, you know, doing the newspaper reports, and doing all those things, so that would kind of, I think, give us a step up from what we've had in the past. And then, you know, project management, policy development, implementation, meeting coordination, grant writing and funding, long-term planning, crisis management, and emergency preparation.
And those are areas that we don't have someone, it's left up to us as a board, and it's hard for us as a board to do.
Well, the police department, I know, like Wojo used to do the iOS 10 million different classes, and then Doug Briggs, I think, was the emergency management
Yeah.
personnel.
Yeah.
Do we have one right now?
Yeah, I'm the EM, I'm the emergency manager.
Okay.
We have like quarterly meetings with other EMs from St. Croix County. And we have our emergency operation plan and stuff like that, but like EM as a whole really falls under St. Croix County and the sheriff's office, because they're EM, the St. Croix County EM.
Encompasses
It
the
kind of
whole
encompasses
county.
us, unless we have something very specific to Somerset.
That is small and contained.
Correct.
They have statutory authority to assume command, you know.
But I like maybe the zoning administrator slash, you know, this administrator could be a zoning administrator as well and kind of plug some of these other holes that are currently missing. As a person, including like
So
HR.
the zoning administrator got put on the planning commission. So
Right.
it's Planning commission said, and we haven't had to do much as the zoning administration, but
But issuing a citation has to come down to someone with authority.
yeah, and we would probably,
I'm just throwing us, I don't wanna get bogged down on this topic.
yeah. You know, the positive side is there's a lot more that could be done for the village. The negative side is we'd have to, you know, Tasia was at 72,000 a year, and Jay, I can't remember his name, the consultant says, well, based on where you guys are and proximity to the Twin Cities, you're looking at probably 90 to 100,000 to start.
I'll just kind of comment, you know, when sitting on the county board, we did many pay studies because we were trying to follow some of the statewide ones. Well, it didn't really apply to St. Croix County because of where our location is. And that, to speak to your point, you know, if you look at pay from counties that are further into Wisconsin or get onto the other side where it's more populous, it's a different story. But you know, we're kind of an anomaly. We have to compete with potential people from that job market.
And we want to be as professional as possible when people are coming in here to, you know, whether it's developers or just something happens and somebody needs to talk to the media, it'd be good to have somebody that's qualified and they're used to doing it, or you know.
At least the initial statements until things get, you know.
And one of Tasia's biggest complaints is like, she's like, I didn't really have anybody to go to when I had a question, you know, the buck kind of stopped with me, and she said,
But authority wise, no.
well, but she's like, well, do I put it on the whole village board agenda and then it gets drug out, or, you know, she's like, I don't have the authority to make any of those decisions.
Like, let me go parallel to the county. The county had a county coordinator position from the mid-90s through 2008, 2009. Basically, was like a village clerk, but supervising 600 employees. Responsible for reporting everything, but no authority to take any action, discipline, make it, you know, recommendation. It was the worst possible job, I think, that is allowed in county government. And we made the decision to jump to a village or county administrator. And it was a big change.
Difference.
It changed board meetings. You get into more policy discussions rather than, you know,
little, like our agendas are now.
Yeah. And you get into good, hopefully good discussions about stuff. And that's what's, now, you can watch some county board meetings and maybe disagree if they're good discussions, but that's, you know, that's another topic. What I'm getting at is, it can elevate the level of strategic, planning and level that the village board can be, acting on rather than just the business of the day.
You know, and I think, Bob, right now, you're kind of writing most of the grants that go out, right? So then this person would help with the grants. Bob's probably writing different grants than the village administrator would probably write, or maybe just, consolidate or whatever, but. And then, at our meetings, the village administrator's sitting here at the table and giving us a report of, this is what I've done, X, Y, Z, and.
And possible, when it comes to things to vote on, here's the recommended,
This is what the city staff recommends.
yeah. And it's always up to us to accept or deny or change and, discuss further, but it'll change over time, how the board works, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I'm saying that it's a potentially very positive thing. I'm just saying that it does have growing pains.
Right.
Well, it's gotta have a lot of thought process to it as well. It can't be just ready, fire, aim. You're talking about actually changing the job descriptions. And pulling certain job duties out of, Andrea's, or job duties out of the clerks and putting it to the administrator, or pulling stuff from Bob or from Joel, compliance issues, HR issues, whatever those issues would be, whatever we want it to be made up to be, you're looking to completely realign the whole makeup of the staff,
Not just job descriptions, but ordinances.
right?
Right.
And that's something that just, in my opinion, I'd like to kind of hear what the staff has to say about that in that regards too, because they are the ones that are gonna have to deal with this more than us. When we come in once a month, and they're gonna be dealing with it on a daily, weekly basis.
And all change, right now, they report, Bob reports to the chair of the Works Committee. Joel reports to Chris as chair of public safety. It'll clear up, as chairs, when I sat in those positions, I was previously public works chair for many years, public safety chair for many years. We're not here on a daily basis to provide supervision and oversight, and it's when a fire pops up, or when you have a spare moment to stop in and to chat, or that's not fair oversight to a department, in my opinion. It's not giving them good guidance. This can help maybe move that and elevate that process along. Again, I'm saying some of the positive, but I'm also very cautious and agreeing with Donnie that this is not
We don't have to be
something.
cautious.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's something we just change overnight.
Yeah, that's why we're having this discussion to see if it's worth pursuing, but we're kind of in a
How long do you have the position vacant?
time crunch, but we could, if, say we decided this at tonight's board meeting that we're gonna go forward, we put out applications for 3 weeks, 3 more weeks. We have applications that came in for clerk, we emailed them back, tell them what the job duties would be, see if they're qualified or interested in it, and some of those would add their name to the hat. And then we hire a consultant too that can do a broader search for us. You get the most professional person in your possible.
I know a lot of times hiring consultants gets a bad rap and can, look at, oh, you hire a consultant for X dollars and what did they really provide?
Well, this,
My experience, when we went through it with the county administrator, we would have been, at that time, we were 31 board members trying to imagine 31 board members trying to make even a majority decision is difficult. So it was absolutely essential to have someone from the outside give us guidance.
Yeah, we did
Now,
that.
7 board members is dramatically different. I'm trying to compare it to an experience I've had where there's a conversion that went through. You know, I worked in the school system. We've always had administrators. So that system has been in place forever, but it's evolved. That's evolved. Often speak of being sitting on the board. I myself as an employee the administrator job changed over time. As well, in more, you know, just as this potentially could. I'm worried about fast-paced schedule. Without kind of getting a consultant in to kind of say, here are the things that we need to. Or talking to another village that has done this recently. To say, here are the things that. Also went along with just hiring the person. Yeah.
So like when they hired John Harbaugh, I can't remember his name, he came in part-time for a while before
John
Doug.
Schultz Senior.
No, before that,
Oh,
wait,
okay.
and then before Doug.
John Hartview.
Harview. There was a consultant there that was hired when Doug Briggs came in as chief, there was a consultant there, and then I think even when.
Between Tom and,
Yeah,
between Tom and me.
And it's all a level of what you want that consultant to provide. I mean, it's a soup and, you know.
and then Adam Gitter from Kewaskum, he had recommended this Jay Shambaugh from Innovative Public Advisors. And he said he was great to work with, very reasonable. Jay didn't send me his quote that he said over the phone, like it's cheaper than you think. So I don't know if that's 2,000, 5,000, 20,000, I don't know, but it might be something we could look at. And maybe in the meantime, we discuss from the clerk positions, clerk applications that came in. Maybe we start out hiring a part-time clerk while we kind of take our time to make sure we get the right village administrator.
Can I hear from the staff?
I would love that without putting anybody on the spot, if you'd like to share any sentiment.
Anything you say is
Candid
just
will be-
candid.
It's not recorded.
It's just recorded. At the end of it, it's just like our comments can come back to bite us. Don't worry about it.
Attorney,
This is,
cannot afford an attorney when we appointed you.
Who wants to go first?
Well, I feel like Andrea and Amy work with, closely with the clerks, so maybe it'd be appropriate if you're comfortable. Otherwise, I can share my opinion.
Or you go ahead.
So, yeah.
I've already shared my thoughts.
It kind of hurts to hear that Tasia didn't have anyone to lean to, like if she would have reached out. And we kind of bounce ideas off each other once in a while, but I feel like as a collective group, we do a pretty good job of helping each other out, kind of find solutions.
For sure.
And then the stuff that we can't figure out on our own, you know, typically we go to our chair. Or sometimes it's involving the village attorney. I'm open to change. I'm open to this idea of an administrator. You know, I had a different vision for possibly if there's not enough work for that position for a full-time position as a clerk, maybe a part-time position or some type of creative combination to save money as a village. But I also understand the other perspective of like, yeah, we want to be a professional outfit. We're growing. You know, whether Bob needs, you know, I don't want to say help or assistance, but like, he's got a lot of irons in the fire right now with a lot of projects in the growing community.
Definitely.
But at the same time, like, I personally looked at the clerk, administrative position, like, well, is this something I'd be interested in? And quite frankly, it seems like a lot, at least with the job description that was presented.
and that's also why you see the pay levels there.
Yes, yeah, that is true too, but like you said, we're competing with a market, very close across the river. And it sounds like, I don't know if we're able to say this or not, but we do have some really good qualified candidates that have submitted for the independent clerk position right now as well. I guess to summarize, I'm open to change. However, I think things as they are currently, are working for at least from my perspective and from the PD perspective. And it sounds like there's a collective opinion that it'd be nice to get that position filled sooner than later. From the,
General clerk.
You're-
position.
To clarify, you're referencing to the clerk position, correct?
clerk
Not the
position.
administrator position.
correct,
But nothing overly negative about looking at some of the additional things
Yeah.
that someone else could take on
so,
that Mike highlighted that are
Over
right
and
now,
above that are-
that are really not anyone's responsibility or anyone's focus at all right now.
so I'll say when I took over as chief, it was a year of hell. There's a lot of learning, there's a lot of things get thrown at you, from going from a patrol to administrator position. And I could probably feel where, you know, a new employee with less than a year would be like overwhelmed with like, what do I do in this situation? But, you know, I did reach out to our collective group and I have a network of chiefs and I've gone to trainings to help educate myself to make it a little bit more sustainable. And it is more sustainable. I feel like, you know, there's obviously more learning that needs to happen, but I can kind of relate to maybe Taja's perspective of like, well, where do I go? What do I do? And a part of that is building a network and kind of networking with your colleagues as well, but. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where she had a little bit of she didn't have, she wasn't she came from another governmental entity, but not a clerk entity, wasn't in a similar role.
And as a clerk, she didn't have a lot of the responsibilities, so she's like, who do I?
Yeah.
What do I do? It's not in my job description to be able to.
I think it's a very valid thing we
Public
need to
relations
resolve.
and community engagement and grant writing.
I still feel like it's not the budget at this point. For
Yeah,
administration.
well, I mean, if you got a good clerk and they do one grant, that might pay for 1 or 2 or 3 employees
You can,
with money savings.
I mean, it's happened in the police department. As an example.
Huh?
ready now?
How many good grants did you guys written? Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I would definitely take a look at our budget to see what we have. For next year especially, and see what that's gonna do, kind of infuse that number and see where everything can align.
Yeah, let's just say even $30,000 can we come up with?
Sure.
30 grand.
Sure.
I mean, I would hope.
Yeah. And I feel that longevity definitely helps in this, all of our positions, because you learn, like, if I have a personnel issue, I learned to go to the chair and village president, just let them know, hey, we're having a situation, or we need some additional staffing, those things. So I feel a lot of it's learned through your job, and I would share what Joel said as being accurate. I feel like I know who I need to go to. If it's a public works matter, I'm gonna go to Donnie, or maybe even include the entire committee if it's something that is important enough. But giving Donnie updates, or whoever the public works chair is gonna be. And then Mike, I typically bring economic things to you. And, bring it to other board members that, again, they should know about something or a proposal. But that normally starts with you. And so that's not so difficult, I guess. If there's a problem on a linear scale between employees, that's where things can get a little messy. But we all get along very well. We all want to see each other succeed, so, times are busy here just because we're down staff, so we're, everyone's offering what we can do to help, but to delay it's gonna stress people out pretty significantly. Just by knowing from working with them for a long time that it's gonna wear them out, and I would then be worried about losing another work.
Well, we've had clerk changes. Probably more frequently recently than we wanted, for whatever reasons, and we don't need to get into an employee confidential data. I'm just saying it's a fact, there's been turnover, and that causes.
Pam was here for like 10 years, and then
I almost here 19.
19 years, and then Felicia was an actor
9,
with 9, and then 2 with Asia.
9.
Yeah, just shy of 2 years.
Well, can I ask, what was the time frame from filling from Felicia to Tasia? I wasn't.
3 weeks.
No, more than that.
There was,
Well, we put out the
Uh,
applications for
6.
3 weeks.
Yeah, it was almost a month and a half, wasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah, that's okay.
6 weeks.
And that was just, you know, essentially a lateral move in terms of clerk to clerk. I mean, there really wasn't any adjustment to the job description or anything at that time. It was just find a qualified candidate to, the best qualified candidate for the job responsibilities.
Mhm.
And this would have never even came up if Tasia went to said something, and then like kind of light bulbs went off, and like, we should probably talk about this and investigate it and see if this is the best thing for the village.
I think maybe we step back, I think point one Bob has, we need to do a budgetary exercise first.
Mhm.
Where does this all?
Donnie probably has it memorized.
Well, I'm just saying that, you know. But it is, you know, it's not very flexible.
Mhm.
So, Andrea, I'd like to hear from you.
Well, I've shared my opinion with the finance committee. I'm not opposed to looking into this and possibly hiring an administrator, but I do not want to rush it. I do not want to delay bringing the office staff back to 3 people. Amy and I are swamped right now. And,
You can be swamped when it's, when
And it's only been-
Tasia was here, you
it's
could be
only been
swamped.
10 days.
Now
Really.
it's 2.
So, you know, I think what Joel and Bob both said as far as, you know, we all work together really well and help each other solve any problems that come up. Joel was helping me organize my checks one day. I mean, we help each other out.
I think that's great.
And,
It's
this is something,
That's
it's a big
something-
change. And I think an hour meeting to try to decide if this is where we want to go is not enough time. To make a good quality decision.
I wouldn't think if people would wanna do that, it doesn't have to be all, the job description, everything doesn't have to be done now, it's just a matter of, is that the direction we wanna go? And then if so, do we wanna try to get assistant clerk hired as soon as possible based off the applications that came in? And get somebody in here right away.
I think it might be a possibility to move forward as usual with the current posting for a clerk position. Kind of see kind of where. Let them get their feet wet, explore this simultaneously, and then maybe pitch it as a administrator. Maybe in the future,
Potential growth.
and maybe not into, maybe it doesn't have to be the clerk administrator, maybe it could be the treasurer administrator, or maybe it could be
Whatever we make.
Bob administrator. You know what I mean? Like, if we wanna get,
But then we're adding a whole nother full-time position
But
in
Correct.
addition, instead of just a part-time.
we would have to clarify the posting and maybe
If we're worried about the
modify it to
budget
say
now,
that
then we're-
because, you know, it's an interim clerk position. If we're gonna study
It's
this,
already- It's closed.
yeah,
You
okay,
know, the original posting is
13th.
done,
is correct.
so it would be reaching out to everybody that applied and then reposting.
I think from a legal standpoint, if Paul was here, he would probably say, we're making changes to what we posted from a full-time to a partial or an interim. We're gonna need to repost.
We would repost, but we'd still add the people that,
At the clerk at this point.
so my point was like, let's say, move forward with interviews with just a clerk position. And maybe you add an interview question on at the end, like, if, would you be interested in a joint clerk administrative position if this would be evolved in the future?
Are you qualified for it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something similar to that, and then let them get their feet wet. You know, get in here as a clerk first, and then kind of go through this entire year, budget for it maybe next year if the cards, or if we have enough money to do so and the consultant recommends it. And then maybe if we have a rock star employee that is in that seat, that's able to absorb both jobs and roles. That might be a way to transition, maybe not today, but in the future.
I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying, if we decide to make that and then that person isn't,
Sure.
Maybe have
Able to-
another staff member that would.
yeah, and you know, I want to be sure that we put this new clerk that we have on notice that we are studying this so that they understand that there may be changes in their position. I think that's only fair to them.
Well, as with the handbook, it clearly states that there, you know, stuff can be changed at the.
Correct, I agree with it, but I think it just be fair up front so that they're not.
So what I would say is that there are certain things that can, help all the staff in areas. I think if staff collectively got with the board and said, you know, I could use a hand with this, or I could use a hand with this, or I could use a hand with this. And we slowly start pulling that stuff out and putting it into a basket, and we figure out what that position would be and how that help would integrate with the current staff, including a clerk. I think then at that point in time, we could look at, from a budgeting standpoint, what that is going to entail and, you know, through growth. I think we would be able to see it, but you're right, it's not in the budget for today. Even if we brought him in tomorrow and said, well, we're gonna hire an administrator, and he's gonna have everything that we have, and and we're gonna get him for 90,000, we could be waiting for 6 months to fill that
On
position.
top of a consultant.
Exactly, and now, you know, I'm hearing from the staff, you know, from Andrea, that she's swamped and they got, you know, an election coming up, and that can, you know, and there's good candidates that I'm hearing. How many applications do we have?
I didn't count.
You didn't count.
There's a lot.
There's a lot.
There's,
I think there's over 20.
and I had 15 come in on Indeed.
Okay, so let's assume there's over 50, let's assume there's over 20 candidates. Just making an assumption on that if we manage to fill that position, that we, as a board and staff collectively look at what those areas are that have fallen to the back burner that we're not able to accomplish, like getting stuff on the web and getting, you know, and what that position would be that could help Bob, that could help this person, and it might not be an administrator as much as we say this is an administrator and the clerk duties get less and everybody else's duties get a little bit less because they're picking up what isn't getting done. I mean, we are growing, and with the size of the developments that we currently have going on around here, and, you know, it puts a severe economic strain on what we're looking at. We need to take a close look at that all the way around, because it puts heavy burdens on Bob and puts heavy burdens on the police department, and this administrator would be somebody that should be budget aware of growing pains and understanding that. And I agree wholeheartedly, you don't put somebody in here until you got some semi-seasoned staff. You know, you gotta have somebody in here that, you know, the staff is somewhat seasoned. And so if you're gonna bring somebody in green, it couldn't be to your detriment, in my experience.
Sometimes it works, but
I haven't seen it. I've been a
I
lot.
think at this point, we gotta move forward in the clerk position, correct? And maybe budget like 5 years
That's kind of, or less,
or less.
you know, but I mean, depending on what duties and what's all out there. But I don't think we're gonna be able to,
I'd love
get an
to see
administrator today.
I'd love to see what the consultant fees are.
But at least maybe have an initial presentation around, we probably could glean a lot of insight just from a presentation from him.
Sure.
But in the meantime, we still are shortening our staff.
I'm not saying that stops the clerk, I'm saying in parallel too.
Yeah, I think we need to move forward with the clerk for sure.
Absolutely.
and hedge toward this in the smartest way possible. That, based on everything that we've discussed and has been put forth, I don't see a lot of cons other than cost to the role. I'm hearing mostly benefits. And the inevitability of our growth as a community is right in front of us. It's going to happen whether anybody wants it to or not. And, we need to grow our village administration at the same rate, at the bare minimum.
I'm just gonna throw out something, maybe this is something we have as a every other month workshop discussion. You know. So we get closer, you know, we proceed with the clerk. We add on the question of, you know,
I would support that.
and, you know, questions that may lead, get some insight out of the people that we are looking at, what their,
Attributes.
yeah, what their qualifications or even desire to go in that direction would be.
Or make it a standing agenda item
Yeah,
for
we
personal.
got 20
appointments.
applicants to look.
Yeah, it's whatever, and then, you know, but I think it's also, I think finance has a lot of, is gonna have a lot of work to do with job descriptions and, you know, each committee's gonna have to look at whether, once the administrator is hired or, you know, eventually the ordinances and just simple things are gonna need to be cleaned up. That's not a small task. But, you know, maybe finance is a standing item on finance and we have a, you know, a quarterly workshop before village board meetings, just to have a joint discussion with the other 4 board members that, you know, aren't in that daily or that monthly. I'm just throwing that out as a concept. We're here in a workshop, we don't have to make the recommendation till the next agenda in, you know, in an hour or less than an hour.
Well, we do have to make a recommendation in this meeting because it's discussion, it's discussion. I'm not
Yeah, we make it
Yeah,
after the
apologies. on that.
board meeting.
In the next meeting is when we make it, I'm just throwing out a possible ways forward. I think we can't leave any more extended time with the clerk position, because I don't wanna see these 4 and others to a breaking point and we lose another great employee.
I think it's inevitable. We're going to have to add this position as we grow as a village. We have to do it carefully, right? The job description alone is going to be a really complicated process. We have to make sure we're meeting the statutory requirements for a clerk. And the ordinances have to be updated. The office would have to be reconfigured, have another desk. So yeah, we should really definitely take our time. I think we could get a really quality clerk in there, and then that person can help us with this process. When he or she is observing, well, I don't know how to do this, or I think this should be handled by someone else, then maybe that person is able to grow in that position. I'm willing to train someone that is willing to stick around and work with us.
I think it sounds like to me at this point, you need to have a go-to person that the clerk has. So this person, he or she, doesn't feel like, hey, who do I go to?
I think your point is well taken, that, you know, it needs to just be well communicated that, you know, during the interview process or the hiring process, whatever that may be, that these are your go-to people, and if you can't get it from them, these are your go-to people, you know, second.
Clarify, yeah, I made that note, you know, clarifying the question process, for lack of a better term, you know, your your other department heads, your cohort networks, you know, the other chiefs, other public works directors, other economic directors, other treasurers, you know, making sure they're tapping what Joel said, you know, making sure when there are questions or there's and Bob said this, you know, or, and I know Andrew does as well, when there's things of concern or of you know, that they're letting the respective chair and the president a heads up notice that helps with the, you know, understanding of what's going on, but making sure that maybe that chain of command process is more spelled out a little bit. I'm spitballing
I mean,
here.
the one
but-
thing, the nice thing is since I've been here, I've seen the departments work really good with each other.
Great.
And I don't know if it's always been that way.
No,
but
I will
I mean,
say,
I gotta give-
I will admit it is
I
a
really gotta
difference
give it to
from
you
when I was
guys,
here
they've been
before.
really good to work with together,
I agree.
and I think it's great, and it's awesome.
From when I previously served, it is a big difference.
And I like that you are free to go to each other and solve problems together.
So maybe some, maybe,
Yeah.
Can I say something?
Absolutely.
That there is a binder in the clerk's office that should have been used, like for the new, for Tasia. I don't think that ever got opened. There's multiple times that, I mean, she could have asked for help. So I don't want a new clerk coming in thinking, oh my God, watching this meeting, I'm gonna have no help.
Right.
There's lots of help. They just need to utilize what's here.
Well, that's getting them into the Clerk Institute, or, you know, those programs as well. I mean, that was been very beneficial in the past, that changed. Yeah, I mean, I saw that change when Pam went through that process, you participated in that process. I mean, you two have your version of that with your respective organizations.
maybe we do this, maybe we continue with I mean, just on the Indeed that I put out on my personal Indeed, we got 15 applications just on that, so how many do you guys think you got in, approximately 15, 20?
Probably.
So.
At least 20.
So maybe we go through those and we kind of look to see who is in that role could possibly jump up into that village administrator position. So we test them out as the clerk position, and if they're rock stars, then we kind of move them in to it, and then if that person can handle both positions, great. If not, we start looking at a third time, part-time clerk, assistant clerk, deputy clerk position. And then if it's too much, then you move it up to half-time or 2/3 time.
As we grow, we can grow that secondary position as
So
well.
maybe while we're going through all these applications, we're kind of keeping that in mind, that we're trying to kind of test somebody out in the clerk position to see if they have the horsepower to do all that extra stuff that.
Yeah, obviously you're gonna weed out people that are not gonna be worth interviewing.
I think,
And then-
Yeah, for sure, but
And then you're gonna have your people that are probably just gonna meet the core competencies right now.
yeah.
And then there's gonna be probably some that are going to be in, that
Let's hope so.
potentially in that group that you just described.
But
But
if
keep
we
in
have-
mind, just keep in mind that once you've developed, the job, description of this administrator position, whatever it might be, through the help of all the assistant department heads and that it should really be put internally first, because there could be, we don't necessarily, I know we're saying, well, let's see if we can groom this clerk into that. Maybe the clerk is just a clerk, and maybe one of these others that have more knowledge in something might want to step into one of those positions as well, and we offer that to everybody before we put that to them. And if we don't get it internally, then we take a step back and look at what we need to do.
Another reason why we need to
I
move
with,
cautiously.
I'm with Caleb on,
But that
you know,
would,
getting some kind of a cost established with, this consultant or something like that to see what that would be, to have them look at that. But I mean, many of the places that I've ever been involved with that have redeveloped or redefined their job alignment and their structure, you don't really need much of that, because it's already been done, you know, it's just a matter of, it's textbook stuff, you know?
and that way the person comes in as a clerk, or maybe one of the interview questions is, hey, this position may turn into a village administrator position, or we might hire a separate village administrator in the future. The person would be familiar, and it would be your guys' input, like, yeah, this person would go transition really well into this role. And that gives us time as a board and committees to be able to work through the job descriptions, the ordinance changes, and it wouldn't have to be any kind of rush deal that.
I see, the only way I would felt good about that is if anybody that we have right now would be interested in that position.
We asked.
We don't
I
know
would
what,
just say if that, then I would maybe consider it, but I feel.
I think
we don't know what the position is gonna look like.
we need to move forward with the clerk and all the ideas about how we modify it.
Okay.
You know. Interview questions that they would all get the same interview questions, obviously,
But
you
the
know.
last question,
Yeah,
okay, if
yeah.
this,
What I'm getting at is. The next probably two steps as the finance committee and, you know, board discussion would be. Where does this budgetarily fit? And I think bringing in that consultant or another consultant. I think you could learn stuff just from the presentation of it, that,
good, and right now where we're at, it's not like we have to bring in a consultant, because we have 35 applicants.
no, I'm saying to learn about like, if you brought in a consultant to talk about. Hiring a village administrator, we're gonna glean things that we never even thought of. I'm, you know,
Yeah.
from what that person is gonna present to us in his sales pitch, or his or her sales pitch is what we're getting at.
my takeaway from this meeting is that we're going to continue with the clerk and, clerk, the hiring of the administrative clerk position with the caveat that it could be additional duties and or changes to the job description in the future, subject to, you know, the board's direction, and that we have quarterly work sessions to, review the matter and try to work through what an administrator would look like.
And that can be your motion during the village board meeting.
Well, I just want to make sure that we're all in agreement.
I think that's general, the concept of it.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Meeting is adjourned at 5:47 PM. 5:48 now, 12 minutes to the meeting. Can we start the meeting?